The story begins on a still, tense evening. In the quiet confines of their dimly lit home office, Daniel sits alone, shrouded in shadow, illuminated only by the cold, white glow of his computer screen. Meticulously, he scrolls through months of financial records, his fingers deftly clicking through one statement after another. Each transaction, every highlighted, seemingly insignificant withdrawal, has transformed into a breadcrumb on the trail of Emily's betrayal. With each line, the weight of deception grows heavier. The regular transfers, modest in amount, but frequent enough to catch his discerning eye, all lead to a single, hidden account. Daniel's heart pounds as he realizes the calculated nature of her actions. Emily, his charming, smiling, endlessly deceptive wife, has siphoned money from their joint account with the precision he might have admired if it hadn't been a blatant violation of his trust. As the realization sinks in, Daniel's initial shock dissipates, replaced by a simmering, bitter anger. His jaw tightens, his hand steady on the mouse, as if bracing himself for the confrontation to come. Suddenly, the silence is broken by the sound of soft footsteps approaching the office. He doesn't move, doesn't even turn around. Emily enters, her eyes reflecting the warmth of someone who has nothing to fear. Or so she thinks. "Daniel," she murmurs, oblivious to the storm brewing in her husband's gaze. He lets her take a few steps further, waiting for her to come into the light of the screen, before finally speaking, his voice calm but laced with an unmistakable edge. "Care to explain," he begins, each word cold and clipped, "why our money is disappearing bit by bit into a stranger's account?" Emily freezes, her expression slipping for just a moment before she recovers, flashing a quick, unconvincing smile. "What do you mean?" she asks, her voice strained with a forced lightness, as if they're discussing a trivial mistake and not a steady drain on their finances. Daniel doesn't respond immediately. Instead, he swivels his chair to face her fully, his gaze unwavering. He's waiting, giving her one last chance to come clean. But as the silence stretches between them, Emily's nerves begin to crack. She reaches out, resting her hand on the back of the chair, fingers tightening as she realizes she's not in control of this situation. "You heard me, Emily." His tone is sharper now, cutting through the air. "I'm talking about the money, our money, that's been moving to an account I never knew existed." He gestures toward the screen, where rows of small, deliberate transactions line the page, each one a record of her deception. "You can drop the act. I already know." Emily's face falters, her innocent facade wavers as she searches for a plausible excuse, but Daniel can see the gears turning in her mind, and it only fuels his anger. She's not grasping the gravity of her betrayal. She's thinking about how to manipulate the truth. It's nothing, really," she stammers, glancing down. "I was just setting a little aside, for emergencies. I didn't want to worry you." Daniel's laugh is sharp and bitter. "Worry me?" he repeats, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "That's what you're going with? Sneaking around behind my back, lying about our finances? That's your idea of not worrying me?" Her lips press together, and for the first time her eyes flash with defiance. "Daniel, I don't see what the big deal is. I'm just making sure we have a safety net. Don't you think you're overreacting?" Daniel's expression hardens. He stands up, slowly, deliberately, and takes a step toward her, his eyes fixed on her with an intensity that makes her shift back a little. "If this was just about money, maybe. But it's not. It's about you lying to me, about how easily you did it, how you're still trying to spin some story even now." He pauses, letting his words sink in. "So why don't you tell me the truth for once?" Emily hesitates, and he can almost see the moment her resolve breaks. Her shoulders slump and she lets out a shaky sigh. "Fine, Daniel," she says, her voice quieter, almost defeated. "I didn't want to tell you because... well, because it's not all for us." Daniel's jaw clenches. He doesn't have to say anything. She knows he's waiting for the rest. "There's someone else," she says, barely above a whisper. "A friend. Someone I knew from before us. He needed help, and I thought I could just..." "A friend?" Danielle interrupts, his voice icy, though a flicker of pain crosses his face. "A friend you've been hiding from me? A friend you're so invested in that you're siphoning off our money to support him? Tell me, Emily, is it just money, or is it more?" Emily's silence is answer enough. Daniel exhales, slow and measured, his anger now tempered by a profound, stinging disappointment. "All this time, I thought we were building a life together. I trusted you. But here you are, lying right to my face." Emily looks down, unable to meet his gaze. "Daniel, I didn't mean to hurt you." He scoffs, a bitter smile tugging at his mouth. "Didn't mean to hurt me? You went behind my back, hid things, lied for months." He shakes his head slowly. "And you still think you can talk your way out of this?" Emily stands there, defenseless, her charm and wit no longer a shield. In the silence that follows, Daniel lets his anger settle into something colder, harder. He's given her the chance to explain, and she's squandered it with half-truths and excuses. Without a word, he steps back, watching as she struggles to find something, anything to say. But he's already made his decision. A heavy silence falls between them, thick with the weight of unspoken truths. Daniel walks back to the desk and closes the laptop, his movements slow and deliberate. For a moment, Emily thinks he's finished with her accusations, that maybe she's off the hook. But when he looks up, his expression is even colder than before. "Emily," he says quietly, each word precise, "I want you to understand exactly what you've done." She shifts uneasily, her eyes flicking toward the door as though she could slip away from this confrontation. But Daniel steps forward, blocking her path. "When we got married, I trusted you with everything," he continues, his voice low, controlled. "Every decision I made was with you in mind. Every dollar I saved, every plan I built around our future, I wanted to make sure you never had to worry about a thing. And this," he gestures toward the laptop, as if it holds the evidence of all her deceit, "this is what you do with that trust." Emily's eyes dart to the floor, and for the first time her confidence falters completely. "It's not what you think," she says, her voice barely a whisper. "It's complicated." "Oh, I'm sure it is," he replies with a sardonic edge. "You think I don't know how complicated it is to keep a secret account, to make regular, secret transactions, to cover your tracks for months?" He shakes his head, disgust clear in his eyes. "That takes commitment, Emily. It takes effort. And you were willing to put in all that effort for him." Emily takes a shallow breath, gathering the last remnants of her composure. I thought you wouldn't understand. He needed my help, and you're always so guarded with money, so strict." Daniel's eyes flash with anger. "Strict? Guarded?" He laughs bitterly. "I've been careful, Emily, because I care about our future. But you've been doing everything in secret, draining our account to help some, friend, and not once did you think I had the right to know." He takes a slow, deliberate breath, as though he's steeling himself towards a deep, festering heart. "I don't know if you even realize what you've done, Emily, but I do. You didn't just betray my trust, you took advantage of it, twisted it, and used it for your own purposes, and now you're standing here trying to make excuses." His voice dropped, each word weighed down with disappointment. There's nothing left to say, Emily. I'm done listening to your lies. Her face crumples as his words settle, and she feels a flicker of panic. She realizes, too late, that she's overstepped in a way she can't undo. Daniel, please, she says, reaching out, but he steps back, keeping his distance. I've made my decision, he says, his tone flat, devoid of warmth. From this moment forward, you have no access to our accounts, no way to keep playing this game. You'll learn what it's like to be left out of the plans. She stares at him, stunned, her own confidence drained, replaced by a chilling realization that her lies have cost her everything she thought she could control. Emily stands rooted to the spot, a sinking feeling twisting her stomach as Daniel turns his back on her, a silent dismissal that stings more than any words could. He moves to his desk, picking up a small stack of documents and organizing them with a calmness that feels almost menacing. Each movement, each breath he takes in the quiet room underscores his control, his clarity, while her own composure unravels, thread by thread. Daniel, she begins, trying to soften her voice, hoping he'll look at her, maybe even reconsider. But he doesn't turn around, doesn't even acknowledge her attempt at connection. He just continues, meticulously putting everything in order, erasing any traces of disorder. Much like he's erasing her from his life. A wave of desperation floods over her. She knows this may be her last chance, the final window to salvage whatever remnants of trust might still linger between them. She takes a tentative step forward, her hands trembling slightly. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she says, her voice just trying to help him. I didn't think you'd find out like this. The last sentence hangs in the air, a confession wrapped in regret. She immediately realizes how selfish it sounds. She didn't regret the deception itself, only that she was caught. Daniel lets out a slow, hollow sigh, finally setting the papers down before turning to face her. Her expression is unreadable, a mask of exhaustion and controlled anger. You didn't think I'd find out? He repeats, his tone dripping with disdain. That's the problem, Emily. You didn't think, not about us, not about our future, not about what this would do to me. You only thought about what you could get away with. She feels the sting of his words, the sharp edges of his disappointment, and the real depth of her betrayal starts to sink in. I know I messed up, she says, trying to sound remorseful, though she struggles to find the right words. But you don't understand. It wasn't just about the money. He needed me. I was helping him get back on his feet. Daniel's face tightens, his eyes narrowing as he finally allows himself to look directly at her, piercing her with a gaze that feels like it could strip away her defenses entirely. Helping him by taking from us. He steps closer, his voice dropping to a murmur, as if sharing a grim secret. You didn't think to tell me this because you knew exactly how I would feel. You knew I'd never agree to what you were doing. So you kept it quiet, thinking I'd be none the wiser while you made your own rules. Emily's breath hitches as his words cut through her justifications, exposing the selfishness she tried so hard to disguise as generosity. In that moment, she understands that he sees her completely. That the version of herself she's clung to, the good wife, the supportive partner, has been shattered by the truth she can't hide anymore. I thought we could work through this, she stammers, feeling her arguments crumble. People make mistakes, Daniel. Isn't that what marriage is about? Working through the hard stuff? A bitter laugh escapes his lips. Marriage is about trust, Emily. It's about honesty. The hard stuff is facing each other with respect and integrity, not lying and sneaking around. He pauses, taking a deep, steadying breath. This isn't just a mistake, Emily. This is a choice you made, over and over again. You betrayed me, and you did it knowing exactly what it would cost. She opens her mouth to argue, but nothing comes out. For once, she has no clever retort, no charming excuse. She is left standing in front of him, stripped of every defense she's relied on, with nothing to offer but the reality of her betrayal. Daniel gives her a long, measured look, his silence weighted with finality. "I'm done with this conversation," he says, his tone as cold and unyielding as stone. "From this moment on, you're on your own." And with that, he turns away, his words echoing in the room as he walks past her, leaving her with a crushing sense of emptiness that tells her everything she feared. He has truly shut her out. Emily stands alone in the quiet room, the weight of Daniel's words pressing down on her, suffocating. She feels paralyzed, her mind racing but unable to land on anything that could repair the damage. For a long moment she's frozen, unable to process that her life, carefully constructed around trust and shared ambitions, has unraveled in a matter of minutes. Slowly, she sinks into the chair Daniel vacated, her eyes drifting over the desk cluttered with the remains of her betrayal, the open laptop, the highlighted statements, the neat stack of documents that now serve as silent witnesses to her deceit. She reaches out to touch one of the pages, her fingers trembling as she traces the highlighted entries, each one a quiet accusation. The numbers blur, and her vision clouds with tears she can no longer hold back. But crying, she realizes bitterly, changes nothing. As the minutes stretch into silence, the reality of her situation settles in. For the first time, she's forced to confront the choices that led her here, to face the quiet, selfish motivations she disguised as noble intentions. She thinks back to the thrill of those hidden transfers, the sense of control she'd felt every time she sent money to her friend, justifying it as her way of helping someone in need. She had told herself she was being kind, charitable even. But as she sits there, she understands how hollow those rationalizations sound. This wasn't kindness, it was recklessness, wrapped in selfishness, and now she's paying the price. Emily's mind races to the friend she sacrificed everything for, the one she had placed above her marriage, her future. She realizes, with a sinking feeling, that he would never do the same for her. The one-way nature of her sacrifice stings now, a bitter reminder that she had valued a phantom relationship over the real bond she had with Daniel. And worse, she had destroyed it on a whim, assuming she'd never have to face the consequences. Her gaze drifts to the closed office door, imagining Daniel on the other side, somewhere in their house, making plans without her, erasing her from the life they'd built together. She feels an urge to chase after him, to beg him one last time, but deep down, she knows it's too late. She's crossed a line and he's already decided to move forward without her. A chill settles over her as she considers what this new reality means. He has taken back control of the finances, the plans, everything that once belonged to them as a couple. She remembers his final words, how he said she was on her own. The reality of that statement hits her with a clarity that's almost painful. The safety net she thought she could rely on is gone. The support she'd taken for granted is no longer hers. She is, in every sense, alone. She stands, steadying herself against the desk, her legs weak, her mind reeling. Her gaze lingers over their home, the small, familiar details she had always assumed would be hers. She realizes that she may lose it all, that Daniel's departure signifies more than a temporary rift. He's taken back control, stripped her of her privileges, and left her to grapple with the emptiness she created. The thought fills her with a hollow dread. She's always been able to talk her way out of problems, to charm her way back into people's good graces, but with Daniel, those skills have failed. He sees her now, the real her, stripped of excuses and masks, and he has walked away without a backward glance. Emily's hands fall to her sides, and she takes a deep, shaky breath, feeling a sharp pang of loneliness she's never felt before. Her mind races over what she might do next, but nothing she imagines offers any comfort. The security, the trust, and even the love she'd relied on are now distant, irretrievable. All that remains is a hollow silence, an emptiness that only her choices could have created. With a sense of finality, she walks out of the office, each step echoing in the quiet house as she realizes she must confront a world where Daniel's support, trust, and forgiveness are no longer there to catch her. She has no one to blame but herself, and, with that heavy knowledge, she steps into the unknown. Alone, with the weight of her choices pressing down on her like never before.